Today, we're diving into a shocking turn of events that has sent ripples across Europe and the world. Putin's Baltic Empire collapsing overnight. What seemed like a secure stronghold for Russia in the Baltic region is now unraveling at incredible speed. From military setbacks to diplomatic isolation, this collapse didn't happen by accident. It's the result of years of overreach, miscalculation, and growing resistance from nations that once feared Moscow's grip. Let's break down how this stunning downfall happened and what it means for the balance of power in Europe. For decades, the Baltic Sea has been a vital strategic zone for Russia. It's not just about trade routes, it's about military access, influence, and control. The ports of St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad have been Moscow's gateways to the West. But now, those same waters are becoming a symbol of isolation. Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and the Baltic states have formed an unbreakable chain of cooperation that's cutting off Russian influence. NATO expansion, particularly after Finland and Sweden joined, has turned the Baltic Sea into what analysts now call a NATO lake. Russia's navy finds itself surrounded and restricted like never before. This collapse didn't happen overnight by magic. It's been building for years through a combination of Russia's aggressive policies and the West's coordinated response. After the invasion of Ukraine, sanctions crippled Russia's economy, and the trust between Moscow and its neighbors evaporated. Countries that once balanced cautiously between East and West have now decisively chosen the Western alliance. The Baltic states, Poland, and the Nordics have poured resources into defense, cooperation, and energy independence. Meanwhile, Russia's attempts to intimidate them have only made its position weaker. Kaliningrad, Russia's isolated military enclave, once considered a fortress, is now trapped. Surrounded by NATO members and cut off from reliable supply routes, it's becoming a liability rather than an asset. Denmark's control over the Danish Straits, the narrow passage that connects the Baltic Sea to the North Sea, gives it immense strategic power. By tightening its control and enforcing sanctions more rigorously, Denmark has effectively limited Russia's access to maritime trade. It's a masterstroke in strategic containment, achieved not through war, but through smart, coordinated policy. At the same time, internal weaknesses in Russia are amplifying the external pressure. The economy is under immense strain, the ruble continues to fall, and industrial production has been hit hard by the loss of European markets. Even Russia's long-term energy contracts are collapsing as Europe accelerates its shift away from dependence on Russian gas and oil. The Baltic region, once a key route for these exports, is now being bypassed by new pipelines, ports, and renewable projects. The result is clear. Russia's leverage in the region is fading fast. The political consequences are just as severe. The Kremlin's Baltic strategy relied heavily on dividing Europe and exploiting regional vulnerabilities. But the opposite has happened. Countries that once feared provoking Moscow are now standing firm together. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are not just surviving, they're thriving under NATO protection and modernizing their militaries faster than ever before. Denmark's leadership in maritime security, combined with Finland's and Sweden's military integration, means Russia's Baltic ambitions are essentially blocked at every turn. Even the once powerful Russian Baltic fleet is losing relevance. With limited access and restricted movement, it can no longer project power as it once did. Western intelligence and surveillance dominate the region, tracking every movement. NATO naval exercises now take place right under Russia's nose, demonstrating just how much the balance has shifted. What was once an area of Russian strength has turned into a constant reminder of its shrinking sphere of influence. This collapse also exposes something deeper: the limits of Russia's imperial ambition. Putin's dream of restoring a sphere of dominance around its borders has run into the hard reality of international resistance and economic exhaustion. Each move intended to project strength from annexations to military posturing has instead weakened Russia's global standing. In the Baltic, where geography once favored Moscow, unity and strategy have reversed that advantage. Behind the scenes, European nations are not just celebrating. They're preparing for the next stage, ensuring that Russia can't rebuild its influence. New defense infrastructure is being constructed across the Baltic region, from radar systems to naval bases and rapid response units. Denmark and Poland are coordinating closely to monitor maritime routes, while NATO expands its cyber and intelligence presence. Every aspect of Russian strategy in the region is now being countered, step by step. The loss of soft power is another blow. Russian propaganda and disinformation campaigns, once effective in sowing doubt and division, are now losing ground. People across the Baltic region are more united than ever in their stance against Russian manipulation. From energy independence projects to cultural cooperation, these nations are reinforcing their collective identity, one built on security, democracy, and mutual trust rather than fear. Meanwhile, inside Russia, frustration is rising. Many within the military and political elite are questioning the wisdom of stretching resources so thin. The focus on Ukraine has drained manpower and funding from other areas, including the Baltic. Sanctions make it harder to maintain naval capabilities, and morale among troops stationed in Kaliningrad and nearby regions is plummeting. The propaganda machine continues to claim everything is under control, but the facts on the ground tell a different story. This situation has also changed global perceptions. Russia's decline in the Baltic has become a case study in how overextension can backfire. Instead of expanding its empire, Moscow finds itself surrounded, constrained, and struggling to maintain relevance. The Baltic collapse is symbolic. It's not just a regional setback. It's a sign of a broader unraveling of Russia's strategic posture. Energy, which once gave Russia massive influence, is now one of the main reasons for its collapse. Europe's rapid transition to renewable sources and alternative gas suppliers has stripped Moscow of its most powerful weapon. Ports in the Baltic that once handled Russian oil and gas shipments are turning to green energy hubs, further isolating Russia's exports. This transformation is accelerating the country's loss of economic leverage, making it nearly impossible to rebuild the same level of influence. On the diplomatic front, Russia's circle of allies in Europe has vanished. Even traditionally cautious countries like Germany and Austria are taking a harder stance. Moscow's embassies face growing isolation, and diplomatic ties are shrinking. With Sweden and Finland joining NATO, Russia's western borders are now completely lined by alliance members. What was once an area of vulnerability for NATO has turned into a shield against Russian aggression. Perhaps the most telling sign of collapse is psychological. For decades, Russia used fear as a weapon. But now that fear is gone. The Baltic nations, once under Soviet occupation, are standing tall. They've built robust democracies, strong economies, and powerful alliances. Their resilience is proof that Russia's imperial model no longer works. Power built on intimidation and coercion simply cannot withstand unity built on freedom and cooperation. The ripple effects are enormous. Other regions watching this collapse, from Eastern Europe to the Caucasus, see a clear message. Moscow's power is not what it used to be. The myth of invincibility is shattered. Countries that once hesitated to challenge Russian pressure are now taking bold steps toward independence, reform, and Western integration. This is how empires fall, not always through wars, but through the slow erosion of credibility and control. As Russia's Baltic Empire crumbles, new opportunities are emerging for Europe to strengthen its unity. The EU and NATO are aligning more closely on defense and energy policy. The lessons learned from containing Russia's aggression are shaping future strategies. The focus is shifting from reaction to prevention, ensuring that Moscow's influence cannot easily return. In this new order, cooperation and deterrence go hand in hand. keeping the Baltic and surrounding regions secure. Putin's failure in the Baltic also has personal implications for his leadership. His image as a master strategist has taken a heavy hit. Domestically, cracks are appearing within the ruling elite as rival factions blame one another for strategic miscalculations. The promise of restoring Russia's greatness has turned into a struggle for survival. The narrative of victory and dominance has collapsed under the weight of economic pain and diplomatic isolation. Internationally, the world is recalibrating its understanding of Russia's limits. The collapse of its Baltic influence demonstrates that even a powerful military cannot overcome coordinated diplomacy, economic pressure, and collective defense. This is a turning point not just for the region, but for the global balance of power. Europe has shown that unity can defeat intimidation, and yet, this is not the end of the story. Russia still holds nuclear capabilities and retains influence in other regions, but its ability to project power into the Baltic has been irreversibly damaged. The sea that once symbolized its Western strength now represents its vulnerability. For the first time in modern history, Russia finds itself surrounded by nations that are both militarily stronger and politically united. As the dust settles, analysts are already calling this one of the most significant geopolitical shifts of the century. The fall of Russia's Baltic Empire marks the end of an era, the final collapse of imperial thinking in a region that has long resisted domination. The new Baltic Order is built on cooperation, deterrence, and freedom, values that stand in stark contrast to Moscow's authoritarian model. This transformation happened not through one decisive battle, but through years of endurance, strategy, and unity. Denmark's firm stance, Finland and Sweden's historic NATO membership, and the Baltic states' unwavering determination created a wall that no propaganda or intimidation could break. Together, they've rewritten the rules of power in Northern Europe. As we look forward, one thing is clear: Russia's collapse in the Baltic is a warning to all authoritarian powers. In the modern world, coercion breeds resistance, not submission. The age of empires is over. What survives now is cooperation, shared security, and mutual respect among nations. Putin's Baltic Empire collapsing overnight may sound sudden, but in truth, it's the result of a long, inevitable process, one driven by the courage of free nations standing together. The Baltic Sea, once surrounded by tension, is now surrounded by unity, and that unity has become the greatest weapon against aggression. For Russia, this collapse is not just a loss of territory or influence, it's a loss of ideology, of the belief that fear can still rule the world. And for Europe, it's a reminder that strength lies not in domination, but in alliance. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more updates and analysis on global events that are reshaping our world.